Dr. Beccy Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many thanks to my colleagues across the House for bringing thought and sensitivity to the debates and the committee time for this bill. I often think that this place does not show the best of us, but in the passage of this bill, I have heard considered debates and I have observed people listening to each other on both sides of the argument. And as a new MP, reflecting on how this place currently legislates and how it could evolve and improve, I think that this brings learnings in and of itself. Assisted dying was never going to be an issue without controversy, and there has been much to consider. For my contribution to the debate, I would like to take a few minutes to outline why, as a medical doctor specialising in public health, I am supportive of this bill. Within this, I will also include some brief reflections on the issues of safeguarding and provision of end-of-life care that have been raised by my constituents in Worthing West. In public health...
Honourable friend give way?
Oh, I will? Go for it, yes.
Come on. Honourable friend for giving way. She speaks of the views of her constituents at a very well-attended public meeting of my constituents in Dartford just before second reading. One of the key things that they wanted an answer to was how this bill can prevent vulnerable people from being coerced into taking a decision to end their lives. Would the Honourable Lady agree that this bill, as it's gone through Parliament, has strengthened the safeguards against coercion, and that, in the words of the impact assessment on the bill now, says we have the strongest safeguards in this bill of any jurisdiction in the world?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and I do agree, and I'll come to that later in my remarks. So in public health, we focus primarily on prevention care for the population. In other words, we take decisions using the best available evidence that have the potential to impact the health of thousands, if not millions of people. There is almost always a trade-off with these decisions, quite often one that sees the label of nanny state thrown our way. That is because we deal with choice and freedoms on a population level. So with the assisted dying bill, I ask myself the following. Which population is this legislation for, and what are the needs of this population? And what freedoms and choices are we being asked to legislate for? In terms of the people for whom this bill will be relevant, it is a narrowly defined population that I can very clearly see have specific needs. That is to say, it is people coming to the end of their life with a terminal illness. Again, in public health, at this point in our consideration, we are often met with, as we have already heard, the slippery slope argument. If you legislate for this group of people, it won't stop there. But the criteria to be considered for assisted dying are clear in this bill, and I have in fact heard from constituents who think that it is potentially too narrow. But that is not what is in front of us today, and any change by future parliaments will have to go through another legislative process. Looking at the needs of this population, numerous concerns have been raised in this area, both from a safeguarding perspective and in the provision of end-of-life care. Constituents and fellow parliamentarians have voiced unease at the thought of coercion in this space. If a person meets the criteria for this bill but does not wish to access assisted dying, will they be coerced into doing so by a person or persons with a malign intent? In public health, we often refer to this balance as the precautionary principle. We are supportive of people having a particular choice, but need to be satisfied that in allowing this choice, the risk of harm is minimised. In the context of assisted dying, this translates into taking extra precaution to ensure legislation does not lead to unintended consequences and abuse, and there has been much debate on this. These are reasonable and valid concerns, and I think they have been met with reasonable responses in this bill. Safeguarding measures have been specified in terms of clinician awareness and support and training, referral mechanisms for any concerns, multidisciplinary board oversight, a specific disability advisory board, independent advocates, and multiple discussions to assure all parties that the person comes to this decision of their own volition. The second area around the needs of this population, end-of-life care, is a profound professional commitment for the people who provide it. My heartfelt thanks go to the healthcare teams in my constituency who have reached out during this process to tell me extraordinary stories of compassion, joy and hope brought to people in their final days. They have also reinforced the fact that excellent end-of-life care should be a standard offering in our healthcare system, and that this is not currently the case. As with public health, end-of-life care is often seen as the nice-to-have rather than the essential part of our health system that it actually is.
Would my honourable friend give way? I thank my honourable friend, and I have the pleasure of sitting with her in the Health and Social Care Select Committee. I am well aware, as she is, that palliative care is not where it should be, and that's one of the reasons I'm voting against this bill today. Because we know, as she knows from a public health lens, that there are social determinants of health. But surely we can't be voting for measures today that will be leading to a social determinant of an early death.
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. But this bill is not about negating end-of-life care. If anything, it is shining a spotlight on it and saying that care, dignity and choice at the end of our lives is what should be afforded to us all. Which brings me to my final thoughts on legislating for choice. Our freedom from and freedom to. Currently, if you would like to choose assisted dying, this choice is only open to you if you have sufficient financial resources, which is an equity issue. If you are financially poor, terminally ill and nearing the end of life, you do not have the freedom to choose assisted dying. That does not mean, of course, that you will, but this legislation will allow an equitable choice for this defined group of people. So much of public health, Madam Deputy Speaker, is determined by legislation, and the underpinning premise is that you are creating a safe environment for a population within which individuals can make their informed choice. I think that this bill creates those conditions, and therefore, as a public health physician, I am satisfied that I can vote for it. Ultimately, a good death is something that we all want for ourselves and for those we love and care for. My vote is for this bill based on the arguments I've laid out today, but my broader vote and voice will always be for compassion, understanding and continuing constructive dialogue to ensure that we do our best to improve the lives of the people that we serve until their dying day.